Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel, Paranormal Encyclopedia. I'm just getting set up to go live, so bear with me a moment. Hun, could you maybe check, make sure, in the bedroom, make sure, things are working properly? Welcome back to the, nope, never mind, it is. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're all set. Let me introduce what's going on. So, as most of you probably are aware, my name is Kevin Mears. I am demonologist, paranormal investigator in the Paranormal Encyclopedia. Normally, this channel, of course, has a variety of episodes talking about the paranormal, religion, philosophy, and things of that nature. We're going to be starting a brand new series, and this video is to introduce this new series. I will be doing a normal episode immediately after this one's done, so tune in. Hopefully you'll find this interesting, and then we'll be getting into our topic for the week, which is going to be finally touching on the nature of evil, the topic I tried to do back before when I was still sick. So I'm going to be starting, hopefully this week, possibly next, a weekly, or hopefully weekly, it'll depend on people's work schedules, things of that nature, the downside of being adults. But theoretically, at least, a weekly campaign of a role-playing game called Night's Black Agents. For those of you who don't know what a role-playing game is, Dungeons and Dragons is what we're talking about. So we have a group of people sitting around on the internet, using a streaming service, playing a game in which you describe what they'll describe what their character's doing. If it's something they have a chance of failing at, they roll dice. In this case, all of the dice rolls are made with six-sided, just a normal six-sided die, the thing you find in every Monopoly and Yahtzee set in the history of the human race. It's extremely difficult to explain what a role-playing game is. I would highly recommend, if you're completely lost at the moment, go check out Matthew Mercer's series or any one of the many other series of people playing any particular video game or role-playing game, and you'll get an idea of, at least a general idea of what's going on. There's also people on YouTube playing Night's Black Agents, if you look that up. I'm not going to try and explain what a role-playing game is, mostly because it's a relatively complicated concept, and I've never personally found a good way to explain it to somebody who doesn't know. So from here on, I'm going to just assume that you know what I'm talking about. So, Night's Black Agents is a version of a system called Gumshoe. The way I was first introduced to Gumshoe is another game called Trail of Cthulhu, which is based on Cthulhu and the H.P. Lovecraft and things of that nature. Night's Black Agents is not about Cthulhu. It's not about detective work and mystery solving, which is what Gumshoe normally is about, ergo the name Gumshoe. It's about spies. It's a spy thriller type of game. I don't know what the party is going to be playing. We're still working on that part. But potential ideas are secret agents, criminals, members of the IRA, or even hypothetically possible. A good way to think of it, actually, very much the idea is think of Jason Bourne, think of James Bond, think of Michael Weston and the rest of the crew from Burn Notice. That's the type of characters people are going to be playing. And one of the things that I think is really cool about Night's Black Agents is, and if we were playing Dungeons and Dragons, for example, everyone starts out as a level 1 character, very inexperienced. You don't know what you're doing. You just got out of your whatever you are. You just got out of training for these, basically. In Night's Black Agents, that's not the case. The assumption here is you are James Bond. You are Michael Weston. You are an experienced spy. You have been doing this for years. Your character already knows what they're doing. So you already start out with this very competent character who can do a lot of really cool things. And then things go a little sideways. Because you see, why do they call it Night's Black Agents instead of just, secret spies or something? Well, it turns out your characters have made an important discovery. There is a vampire conspiracy at work in the world. And the characters have left whatever spy agency they worked for to wage a secret war against the vampires. That's the basic premise. It is super spies versus vampires. Those of you who know me know how fond I am of vampires. You can see why it appeals to me already. I also quite like James Bond. I'm a huge fan of the Burn Notice series. So this whole thing is right up my alley. Some things about Gumshoe that make it different than, say, Dungeons and Dragons or Call of Cthulhu or other systems that are kind of cool. So, like I said, you already start out with the basic premise of your character knows what they're doing. So you have two types of skills. You have what are called, well, there's multiple subtypes, but there are two main types of skills. One are what are called investigative skills, then you have general skills. Investigative skills are what in other games would be called your knowledge skills. History, archaeology, vampirology for your knowledge of vampires, of course. Your interpersonal skills, your, quite bluntly, there's a skill called bullshit detector. Your charm, things like that. So you have these interpersonal skills, which you put points in it. It's a point-by system. You don't roll dice to figure out what your character is good at. You decide from the beginning. But here's where it gets interesting. Now, if we were running Call of Cthulhu, or I'll make it simple. If we were running Dungeons and Dragons, and you're trying to spot a trap, for example, you'd make a roll against your perception skill. And perception is covered in these investigative skills. And you're rolling to try and get a specific number or better. But then you add your rank, your number of that skill to whatever you're rolling, so on and so forth. In Night's Black Agent, it's based on a mystery spy type of storyline. In spy movies particularly, you don't see James Bond spend hours dissecting a crime scene looking for the crucial clues that point to where he's going to find the terrorists he's after. You don't watch you don't see a Sherlock Holmes movie and watch him spend like 3 hours digging through the crime scene looking for the bullet. So instead, it's assumed that you need two things to find the critical clue in any scene. One is you need the right skill. If you're trying to learn a piece of information about history, for example, you need somebody in the party who has taken points in history. And two, you need to be there. As long as you have that skill, you find the crucial clue that pushes the story forward. This is explicitly to avoid bogging things down in the whole, oh dang, everybody in the party missed the roll. Now what do we do because they don't have the critical clue they need? It doesn't make for a fun game, and it's not true to the genre. Now, you still put ranks in these skills, because here's the thing. Whatever the crucial clue in a scene is, you're going to find it. Don't worry about that. But let's say the crucial clue you find is a sword. Looks very old, looks like an antique. You can tell, generally speaking, okay, it's a long sword. It's that kind of weapon. But what country did it come from? What time period did it come from? Is it an actual antique or is it fake? That's why you have points and skills. So I might spend a point from history and go, okay, this is a German longsword created in the 14th century, and it's real. Might spend a second point, there's a coat of arms from a specific family. And that's the reason you put points into things. It lets you get additional information. You'll see in the first couple of times we run this, I'll kind of prompt players and go, this is a good time to use skill X. Because it'll be new and well, I've invited several experienced role players to join me, and somebody who's new, so those of you who aren't familiar with role-playing games will see it from the perspective of somebody who hasn't played one before. But they haven't played, none of them have played this system before, so I'm going to give them a couple of prompts to help them realize certain times for skills to become in handy, and then as they get more used to it, that'll back off and it'll be up to them. The other side of this coin, of course, is the general skills. General skills are what you actually have to roll for. This is shooting. This is driving a car. This is punching people, swords, knives, bows, axes, etc. All are general skills. The way that general skills work is you want to do okay. You want to drive a wooden stake through the vampire's heart. Okay, that's a weapons roll. I'll give them a difficulty. So difficulty 4. Now they have 2 options. They can just pick up a 6-sided die, roll it, and if they roll 4, 5, or 6 in this instance, they stake the vampire in the heart. If, on the other hand, they don't like those odds, they go, okay, I'm going to spend 3 points from my weapon skill. Now they roll a d6 and they add 3 to whatever they roll. Which, for those of you who can do basic math, you'll quickly realize, since the lowest thing you can possibly roll on a 6-sided die is a 1, you spend 3 points, you're going to get at least a 4. And that's how it works. It's always optional whether you spend the points. The thing to realize here, in both cases, just because you don't have any points in a skill, you've spent them. If you don't put any points in a skill at all, you have no competence with it. You can't, if it's something very simple, like without any points in driving, you can still probably drive a car. You're just not very good at it. Forget about a high-speed chase. But if you've spent all the points that you have in it, you're still competent. You still can make rolls. Investigative skills, if you spend all the points you have, you still get the automatic clues for free. It's just to quote the rules, you're only mostly badass at the moment. And then those points will come back. Investigative skills come back at the end of a operation, which is basically an adventure. It's usually 2 to 3 sessions, 2 to 3 videos like this. And then the general skills come back a little faster than that, depending on a bunch of different circumstances. So the next question you might be wondering is, what are vampires like in Knights Black Agents? See, that's one of the things I really like about this system is it's designed to be particularly the vampires are designed to be very modular. It doesn't go, here are the statistics on vampires, here are their powers and weaknesses. It gives you a way to build the vampires statistically with what you're going to roll for certain circumstances. It gives you a huge list of suggested powers and weaknesses. And then it leaves it up to you. In particular, what type of vampires are they? They suggest 4 different general types of vampire. And I'll lift the lid a little and tell you what I've got in mind after I get through with the basics. And then you pick one of those, or you can mix and match them. But the 4 types are your classical folkloric vampires. The ones that are raised up by magic. They're magic somehow, or one vampire bites another vampire. Things like that, with other classic weaknesses from mythology. Usually stick to one area. Usually feed on family and neighbors. Things like that. The second type are the damned category, which is more of your. So the first type is your folklore vampires. The second type is Dracula. It's somebody who's made a deal with the devil, or someone who's demonically possessed, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Vampires, things like that. The third category is aliens, which are your sci-fi vampires. It's actually silicon-based life form from outer space, yada yada yada. And then the fourth category would be mutants. It's a weird virus. The pseudo-scientific explanations. So you, as a GM or director, which is the term the game uses, they're pretty much interchangeable. You decide what sort of vampire you're going to have. You're going to decide what sort of campaign you're going to have. There's multiple options for that. You have dusk mode games, which are very realistic. Combat's very lethal. You can get a lot of the cool options. I'm not running a dusk mode game because I want the more cinematic style of game. There are mirror games, which are very moral ambiguity type of games. Your characters are probably involved in shady dealings. vampire influence in certain things is greater. Um, you have stakes games, which are your Fearless Vampire Hunters, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, superheroes with wooden stakes instead of superpowers type of thing. And then the last type, which is the type we're going to be running, which is called Burn, which is a very personal oriented game where it's, vampires are taking your loved ones, vampires are taking over the country that you've sworn to protect, they've taken over the agency that you're a member of. It brings that personal element to the game, which makes it more interesting. Mental stability and sanity become bigger issues in this one as well, for example. Then there's a series of other decisions to be made that I'm not going to get into now, in large part because getting into great detail is going to spoil too much. The last thing I want to say before I get into what specifically is going on with the campaign I'm going to be running is probably the thing I like best about Knights Black Agents is it's a very cinematic game. It's not, the rules are not super crunchy. You don't have to learn 50 million things and memorize 20 pages to run a combat. Trust me, if you're not familiar with RPGs, there are games out there like that. But it's quick. It emphasizes storytelling. In particular, it emphasizes that you want to do those quick, quippy, clever explanations for things. Like, the whole if you're trying to build a bomb and you give a burn notice description of I get some roofing tacks and some spackle and a bunch of chemicals nobody even wants to imagine are out there. Mix it all together in about 20 minutes. I've got a bomb that'll do X, Y, and Z. That's actually more advantageous and a little easier than just I'm going to roll to build a bomb. It doesn't have to be realistic, both by the way the rules say and by the way I'm going to run things. It doesn't have to be realistic at all. It runs on a rule of cool. You want to make it sound interesting. You want to make it sound excited. You want to make it sound like something that keeps the story moving, not bogs the story down. So let's talk, before I end this and get into the main video, like I said, I do want to start to give a quick explanation of the campaign that we're doing. So this is a personal homebrew of mine. It's not something published by Pellegrini Press, which is a company that makes Knights Black Agents. Although I'm using several of their supplements to design it. Also, I'm very proud to say this is not, normally when I run a game, I like to solo run games. This is going to be a big enough and sufficiently cool enough, hopefully, since I'm running it online and I want to keep people interested, game. I decided to need a little help. So currently on hiatus, co-host of the show, my friend Brian McKinley, who writes novels about vampire conspiracies secretly controlling the world, is going to wind up consulting with me on running the game. Should make for an even cooler system, I think. But the basic premise we're dealing with is the party's starting out as secret agents that don't know that vampires exist. Then over the course of the first session, they're going to find out the vampires are real. The vampires have a major interest in the agencies that they're parts of. And then as they find out the vampires are real and report to their superiors, they get burned a la Burn Notice. They're cut off. They're out of touch with all of their contacts. They're hanging in the wind and trying to gather information and figure out what the heck's going on to save the world. That's kind of the premise. I'm not giving out any big spoilers here because this is stuff I've already gone over with my party. But it gives you the idea. You have a bunch of secret agents that are among the few people that know that vampires are real. One of the really neat things that Pellegrini Press has done that I'm also going to probably be relying on is what's called Dracula Unredacted. So, one of the possible campaigns that has been released, because there's multiple ideas that are floating out there for Knights Black Agents, is based on this idea of Dracula Unredacted. The premise being that in the 19th century, MI6, British Secret Service, decided somebody running in MI6 had found out that vampires are real. And he thought, a vampire would make a great secret agent. So they decided to contact a vampire in Eastern Europe and recruit him into the agency. That went disastrously. So the director of the agency at the time went to his younger brother handed him all the after-action reports, and said, "Here, write all this up into a single cohesive report." That single cohesive report was later taken up by the agency, redacted, heavily edited, and published. So, of course, the younger brother in question would be Bram Stoker. And the novel Dracula is a redacted version of the actual events that happened. Dracula Unredacted, therefore, is a copy of Dracula. It's the original text with a bunch of Stoker's original notes included and some changes made for the sake of the story. And then notes from both the original agent who ran the op back in the 19th century and subsequent agents about interacting with vampires and things they found out about Dracula. Because the reality became that, they staked Dracula, they left him for dead. But then the World War II came around and they realized they had a reason why they needed Dracula again. And they woke him back up to help fight the Germans. And if everyone, with minor spoiler, but not a big deal, if everyone will remember, Vlad the Impaler was famous for killing Turks. Turks are Muslims. What is ISIS? Is extremist Muslim sect. I think that somebody in British intelligence might get the idea to wake him up and set him against his old enemies. And that's kind of the situation we're walking into. Because that's the obvious reason that comes up. So the premise of the game is going to be that Dracula is secretly trying to take over the world. Well, the obvious question is, if vampires are real and have all this power, why didn't they do that years ago? And the premise of the answer for why is, well, he's been laying in the ground with a wooden stake driven through his heart for the last several decades. He hasn't been able to run the show. But now he's back and he's active again, and he's gradually reaching his roots out. This also all relates to a very secretive group. In the normal Dracula Redacted campaign, this secret group is part of MI6, and what I'm going to be running, it's a bigger semi-secret thing that's going on in multiple intelligence agencies. It's simply known as Project EDOM, EDOM, which is a reference to the Bible. But that's about all I want to say at the moment, particularly because I don't want to spoil things. I want the players to be surprised. I want people who watching to be surprised and enjoy what's going on. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think it's exciting. I hope you guys will check it out with us. The plan at the moment is not to be doing the shows live, just because we may want to go back and do editing things and things like that. But they will be up within a couple of days of when we do them. The goal is to try to go once a week. My work schedule is extremely hectic right now. That may not always be true, but the ideal is once a week, maybe every other week. We're looking at Tuesdays or Thursdays for the night that we're going to run it, and then probably get the videos up maybe Wednesday, Thursday, or Saturday, Sunday-ish, depending on which day. But yeah, that's it. That's night. Remember, the series is going to be called Night's Black Agents, Dracula's War, and then it'll be episode 1, 2, 3, and so forth. It's not going to replace the main videos. This is a supplementary thing that hopefully you guys will enjoy. I'm really looking forward to running it. But that's going to be it. I'm now going to end this stream, and then I'm going to be setting up and then quickly beginning the new stream, which will be the latest episode of Paranormal Encyclopedia, where I finally tackled the nature of evil. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys stick around for the main episode, and I'll see you in a minute.